Antarctica, a land as white as silence, a continent lost beneath layers of ice, like a book whose pages haven't been read in thousands of years. Its surface is like a face hidden beneath a mask, concealing not only time, but truth. For centuries, it remained a blank spot on maps, a symbol of the unknown. But the closer we approach it, the more we understand. It is not empty, it is silent. But silence is not the absence of a voice. Antarctica has a voice. It speaks through ice, through the trembling of magnetic fields, through fragments of old maps, through strange decisions by governments that suddenly declare these lands neutral, as if there's something to hide. This is a place where science and legend meet so closely that the line between them melts, like an iceberg under the light of an uncomfortable question. What if it remembers what we do not know? We embark on a journey not only through geography, but through time, myths, hypotheses, and silent records. We do not claim, we listen. Because perhaps Antarctica is not the end of the map, but its beginning. Antarctica, now covered in kilometers-thick ice, was once entirely different. To understand this, we must set aside the image of merciless cold, snow-white expanses, and stormy winds that erase everything. We must forget the maps that show it as an empty void, and instead imagine a green continent. Imagine trees reaching for the sun, rivers flowing through soft valleys, and life lush, complete, unpredictable. Over 100 million years ago, Antarctica was part of the great supercontinent Gondwana. It was a world before our world, a landmass that included present-day South America, Africa, India, Australia, and Antarctica. This is not a theory, it's a scientific fact, supported by paleontology, geology, and biological evidence. What is now separated by oceans was once one connected land. On this ancient land flourished prehistoric forests, and in Antarctica, beneath the ice, remnants of that time still exist. In 2009, a team of scientists discovered fossilized trees in central Antarctica. Not just fragments or wind-blown seeds, these were the remains of a forest. Roots, river sediment, layers of dead leaves, a full ecosystem that had existed for millions of years. What's even more remarkable is that these trees had adaptations to periods of darkness, to the cycles of light and shadow that define polar regions. This means it was no accident, it was home. Massive Araucaria trees, human-tall ferns, mosses, lichens carpeting the ground. Alongside them, reptiles, small mammals, perhaps early birds, ancestors of modern penguins, living in a much warmer world. Antarctica was not always a pole of cold. Around 50 million years ago, its climate resembled that of modern New Zealand. Humid, temperate, seasonal, but without severe winters. Offshore drilling and ice core samples confirm that coastal areas once had average temperatures around 10–15 degrees Celsius. Inland cooler, but still habitable. Why does this matter? Because this land, under the right conditions, was livable, but something changed. Continents drifted. Gondwana broke apart. Antarctica slowly moved southward toward the pole. The climate shifted. Over millions of years, the forests vanished. Animals died or migrated. Around 34 million years ago, ice began to form. It grew and thickened, swallowing everything. Now we see only the aftermath, a land buried in ice up to 4 kilometers deep. But here's where it gets interesting. Beneath the ice are not just geological layers. Entire landscapes are preserved. Volcanic features, ancient riverbeds, even structures some of which scientists have described as geometrically anomalous. Are they natural? Perhaps. But it is also possible that they are remnants of something else, something older, something built and buried. And here we step into the realm of hypotheses, but these don't come from nowhere. They're fueled by maps that depict an ice-free Antarctica centuries before it was officially discovered, by sailors' tales of lands teeming with life in the far south. By logic itself, if this land was once warm and habitable, then why not inhabited? We know civilizations have flourished in valleys, coasts, deserts, even mountains. So why do we deny Antarctica the same possibility, just because it's frozen now? But we're speaking of a different time, a different Earth. Imagine a civilization living in forests, building wooden temples, living on stilts. Their traces would not survive millions of years of glacial pressure. Imagine a people with knowledge of climate, of tectonics, of incoming catastrophe. They may have disappeared, merged with others, or left behind something we haven't yet learned to interpret. Something buried under ice, waiting. Antarctica was green. That is fact, not fiction. And that fact forces us to ask uncomfortable questions, and every question is the beginning of a search. Because when a green land turns white, memory vanishes with the color, and only the silence of ice remains, teaching us to listen. Because the answer might already be there, beneath our feet, beneath kilometers of ice, beneath the layers of time. There are artifacts that challenge our understanding of history, not because they look too strange, but because they are too accurate. One of these is the famous Piri Reis map. Created in 1513 by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Ahmed Muhyiddin Piri Reis, it has become the source of numerous debates, mysteries, and theories. Among other things, this map depicts part of the South American coast, the coast of Africa, and, most astonishingly, the eastern coastline of Antarctica. That may not seem strange unless you recall that Antarctica was officially discovered only in 1820. Even more important is the fact that its contours on the Piri Reis map are shown without an ice cover. How is that possible? Piri Reis himself stated that his map was compiled from at least 20 sources, including maps from the time of Alexander the Great, Arabic charts, maps from Columbus, and perhaps even older sources that have not survived. He never claimed originality, only compilation, and it is precisely this compilation that is shocking. The details of the coastline, later confirmed through modern seismic methods, match what is depicted on the 1513 map. We're not talking about approximate outlines, but precise alignment with geological structures that are now hidden under kilometers of ice. How can this be explained? Skeptics, of course, consider it coincidence or misinterpretation, but coincidence cannot explain repeated accuracy. The Orontius Phineus map, made in 1531, also shows Antarctica with detailed internal features that could not have been known to geographers at the time. The Buach map of 1737, the Haji Ahmed map of 1559, even some Chinese sources all hint at the existence of knowledge about this mysterious continent long before its official discovery. The striking similarity among these maps suggests they all shared a common source. But where did it originate? Perhaps it came from a seafaring civilization with global knowledge. They may have studied continents long before it became historically acceptable to believe so. While we don't know what they called themselves, where exactly they lived, or what happened to them, their knowledge left traces. In fragments, in old manuscripts, in copies that survived thanks to Arab and Ottoman scholars. These maps are not merely geographical diagrams, they are memory transfers, encoded records of what was once known and then forgotten. The question remains, how could they have known what Antarctica looked like without ice? This is impossible, without technologies we don't associate with pre-16th century times. Creating a map requires observation, measurement, navigation. Perhaps they used simple yet effective methods, star tracking, complex mechanical tools, knowledge of currents, winds, and the Earth's magnetic field. Or perhaps something more. Another question is, when was the original map created? If we suppose it was made before Antarctica was covered in ice, we are talking about a period more than 10–15 million years ago. An unthinkable notion within conventional history, but one that is constantly reinforced by new data such as the accuracy of the subglacial topography. Beyond geography, these maps share another trait. They portray the world not as divided, but as unified. Each one conveys an understanding of global connectivity, as if created by those who had already seen Earth as a whole. This is a hallmark of a highly developed culture. They didn't merely travel, they knew where they were going. and how continents were linked. If we remove our blinders and stop thinking of ourselves as the first, it all starts to make sense. Antarctica was green, and it was known. It was mapped, and the memory of it survived the glacial cataclysm in fragments that we now see on old parchments and weathered maps. The Piri Reis map is not just a drawing, it is a cry from the depths of time. It is proof that something was, that someone was, and that someone left behind knowledge. Now, it lies before us. We can deny it, or we can begin to listen, because maps don't lie. Interpretations do. World myths are not merely fabrications. They are memories encoded in the form of stories. For thousands of years, people have passed down tales of great catastrophes, sunken lands, lost continents, and times when the world was different. These legends strangely share similar traits regardless of the part of the world they come from. One of the most mysterious images is that of lost lands in the south. Far beyond the oceans, outside the known world, there lay a land remembered but never found. The Greeks called it Terra Australis Incognita, unknown southern land. And although many consider it mere invention, these narratives remarkably fit the picture Antarctica is beginning to reveal today. The ancient Egyptians spoke of Zep Tepi the first time, when gods walked among humans and passed on knowledge. This period ended in a catastrophe after which humanity had to start anew. Interestingly, temple images often depict scenes set among palms, rivers, and mountains completely unlike modern Egypt. Could it be that these descriptions refer to a completely different place? Perhaps a distant continent covered in greenery that later vanished beneath the ice? Some researchers suggest that the memory of Zep Tepi is an echo of an ancient civilization that existed in the south, closer to the polar regions where the climate was once very different. The myths of the Mayans, Incas, and Amazonian peoples also contain references to gods who came from the south. Their boats were made of shining material. They possessed knowledge of astronomy, construction, and time. They were called Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl, Boa. They were not immortal, but they were different. These legends converge on one point: all these beings disappeared, returning to the sea or being swallowed by catastrophe. Some versions speak of a flood, others of heavenly fire, or a long night. The symbolism of cataclysm is the key. It is everywhere. The biblical flood, Plato's Atlantis, the Norse Ragnarok, the Indian story of Manu saved by a boat, all these narratives point to something grand having once happened. And that before this event, there was another reality. Why is this important? Because if Antarctica was once free of ice, habitable, green, and even blooming, then it is quite possible that it was home to a civilization. This civilization could have been the source of many myths, because at the moment of its disappearance, the memory scattered among the peoples who remained. They retold it in their language, their symbols, and the structure of their stories. All these tales do not contradict each other. They are parts of a great mosaic. They testify to knowledge that was not born in a vacuum. It was heritage. Even ancient star maps preserved in temples around the world show the positions of constellations as if the observer was in the southern hemisphere. This contradicts our understanding of the development of astronomy, as it is believed that old world civilizations never crossed the equator. But if we assume the knowledge came from the south, everything becomes logical. An ancient astronomer looking at the sky from Antarctica or its vicinity would see a different sky, a different set of stars. And it is his knowledge that could have been the basis for calendars, myths, and worldviews across the planet. There are also strange architectural coincidences. Stone platforms on Easter Island, mysterious structures in Patagonia, similar symbols in the ornaments of Polynesians and Australian Aboriginals, all these hint at ancient contact. And although this evidence is not direct proof, it creates a context. In this context, Antarctica no longer looks isolated. It is the lost chain link that connected parts of the ancient world. Myths remember more than it seems. Their purpose is to preserve the essence, not necessarily in facts, but in images, rhythms, and cycles. And when we read them through the lens of history, We should not seek literal truth. We must seek structure, essence, because myths are like the voice of ancestors saying, something was. And it was different, and it is worth remembering. Beneath the vast ice cover of Antarctica, which reaches several kilometers in thickness, lie thousands of lakes known as subglacial lakes. These bodies of water have remained untouched and isolated from the outside world for millions of years. Imagine a darkness where sunlight has never penetrated, pressure presses down with the enormous weight of ice, and the water temperature hovers near freezing. This is where one of the largest and most mysterious lakes on the planet is located, Lake Vostok. Research into these lakes opens a door to the past, where science and myth intertwine in a remarkable story. Lake Vostok, hidden beneath 4 kilometers of ice, covers an area of over 12,000 square kilometers and reaches depths of up to 1,000 meters. It has preserved its waters isolated from the outside world for about 15 million years, meaning it may hold unique traces of life untouched by modern processes. But what exactly do these waters conceal? Is there life there? What might it look like? Could it be home to forms of life unlike anything we know? Scientists suggest that the extreme conditions in these lakes could have led to the emergence of unique microorganisms adapted to pressure, cold, and total darkness. These beings might rely on chemical nourishment derived from geological activity on the lakebed, similar to organisms living near hydrothermal vents in the deep ocean. If such microbes truly exist, it would mean life can survive in the harshest conditions, expanding the boundaries of our biological understanding. Beyond the biological aspect, Antarctica's subglacial lakes serve as climate archives. The water, preserved for millions of years, holds information about past climate conditions, atmospheric composition, and geochemical processes. Analyzing samples from these lakes allows scientists to reconstruct Earth's climate history, reveal periods of warming and cooling, and understand the nature of ice sheets and their interaction with the environment. Discoveries of subglacial lakes have been made possible thanks to technological breakthroughs. Modern radar and sensors can penetrate ice thickness, providing detailed maps of these hidden lakes, their size, depth, and shape. Besides Lake Vostok, there are other large lakes such as Odessa, Erebus, and Don Juan, each with unique characteristics. Every new lake discovered offers new opportunities for research, painting a mysterious picture of a hidden world beneath Antarctica's cold and harsh surface. Interestingly, certain anomalies found beneath the ice cover raise speculations about possible ancient structures or traces of living beings. Radar images sometimes show geometric shapes that are uncharacteristic of natural geological formations. Could these be remnants of buildings or settlements of ancient civilizations that existed when Antarctica's climate was much warmer? Myths from many peoples speak of lost lands that sank or were buried beneath ice and snow. Could Antarctica be that lost continent, leaving behind mysteries and traces? Modern science has yet to provide definitive answers, but the complexity and mystery of the subglacial world leave no doubt many discoveries await. With each new study, our understanding of life, climate, and Earth's history evolves. Subglacial lakes are a bridge between past and present, between science and myth, hinting that there are still secrets to be unveiled on our planet. The mysteries of Antarctica's subglacial lakes also hold the potential to radically influence the search for life beyond Earth. If life can exist in such extreme conditions, this expands the possibility of life on other planets and moons with similar environments, for example, Jupiter's and Saturn's moons Europa and Enceladus. This opens new horizons for astrobiology and the search for extraterrestrial life. Antarctica's story is not just one of ice and cold. It is a story hidden in the subglacial waters, which may hold keys to understanding our past and future. The waters of these lakes have been silent for millions of years, but each drop is a page in a great book that science is only beginning to read. Antarctica is the most remote and mysterious continent on our planet, covered by a thick layer of ice that hides not only natural but also historical and cultural secrets beneath it. Modern science recognizes that Antarctica is now a harsh and inhospitable land, but there are many testimonies and theories that suggest this continent may once have been home to ancient civilizations. How and why humanity lost memory of this enigmatic land is something that researchers still strive to uncover. First of all, it is important to recall that geological research proves Antarctica was once part of the supercontinent Gondwana, which included South America, Africa, Australia, and India. At that time, the climate was warmer, and forests grew in the south, flowers bloomed, rivers flowed, and there was abundant animal life. These conditions created favorable circumstances for the emergence of early life forms and possibly the development of proto-cultures or even civilizations. One of the most mysterious topics concerns anomalous artifacts or structures sometimes found beneath the ice or along the coasts. While official archaeology approaches these discoveries cautiously, they continue to arouse interest. In particular, strange stone formations that do not fit typical natural geological processes suggest the possibility of ancient constructions. Radar studies show that beneath the ice there may be rectangular or circular formations resembling ruins in shape and size. Legends of peoples from different parts of the world speak of cities and temples that once existed on the lost southern lands. The myths of the Incas, Maya, Australian Aboriginals, and Amazonian tribes describe great cities submerged under water or ice after catastrophes. These tales show astonishing similarities in detailed descriptions of stone palaces, gold, temples, sacred knowledge, and gods who lived among humans. Scientists who support the idea of ancient civilizations in Antarctica often refer to the theory of humanity's migration. According to this idea, after great disasters, ancient peoples were forced to leave their homes and scatter across the world. They preserved memories of their homeland in myths and symbols passed down through generations. This lost paradise might have been Antarctica, which at that time looked very different and had a much warmer climate. It is also worth mentioning the hypothesis that much ancient knowledge in astronomy, geometry, and construction may have originated in Antarctica. This knowledge, scattered worldwide in the form of enigmatic stone structures such as Stonehenge, the Egyptian pyramids, or the platforms of Easter Island, might have a common source. The lack of clear historical explanations and chronologies allows us to assume that this knowledge belonged to a civilization that existed earlier and lost contact with later cultures. Supporting this idea are unusual archaeological finds, such as artifacts that do not fit the context of known cultural epochs or objects made from materials not found in local geological conditions. These items seem to remind us that the world was much more complex and multifaceted than official scientific theories allow. Modern Antarctic expeditions face many obstacles: harsh weather, geopolitical restrictions, and the inaccessibility of much of the territory. However, it is here that the greatest discoveries await, capable of changing our understanding of human history. Some scientists believe that excavations beneath the ice could shed light on previous epochs and civilizations that disappeared, not simply due to natural catastrophes, but perhaps due to interactions with other civilizations or even epu-based civilizations. Extraterrestrial ones. The symbolism and archetypes found in myths about Antarctica also carry deep meaning. They speak of cycles of destruction and rebirth, loss and restoration of knowledge, and humanity's desire to uncover forgotten mysteries. These motifs can be found across many cultures, indicating a common cultural layer that extends far beyond individual peoples and regions. In light of these ideas, Antarctica ceases to be just a cold continent. It becomes a symbol of lost wisdom, a meeting place of past and future, a key to unraveling the mysteries of our planet and its inhabitants. The search for scientific and mythological traces is a step toward understanding who we are and where we came from. When we think of Antarctica, the image that comes to mind is an endless white desert covered by thick ice. But what if this was once a completely different land, a flourishing continent where a highly advanced civilization existed? A civilization that possessed knowledge that today seems like a miracle or a legend. The mystery of ancient knowledge casts its shadow across the world, but most intriguing is that the traces of this knowledge cannot be ignored. Since ancient times, people have observed the sky, and perhaps nowhere was this more important than on the southern continent, where the stars spoke a completely different language. Ancient astronomical maps found in different parts of the Earth strangely correspond to the sky that could only be seen by inhabitants of the southern hemisphere. These maps are like codes from the past, passed down through centuries, revealing knowledge about cycles of time, seasonal changes, and planetary movements. They seem to say to us, this knowledge came from a place we never expected. Architectural ruins across the world, the mysterious stone platforms of Easter Island, the grand pyramids of Egypt, the enigmatic structures of Patagonia all speak of a common origin. They show us that ancient people knew how to work with stone, understood energy and proportions, allowing them to create astonishing structures that have withstood millennia. Encoded in these structures is knowledge that goes beyond mere engineering. It is the understanding of the connection between humans and the world, the cosmos, and time. The geometry of these temples is no accident. It is a language spoken by light and shadow, the movements of the sun and moon. Yet the real mystery remains. What technologies did these ancient builders possess? Perhaps they harnessed the forces of nature, magnetic fields, the Earth's energy, which we are only beginning to understand today. Legends of fire from the gods and heavenly light may not be mere metaphors, but recollections of real technologies lost along with the civilization. It is impossible to imagine that this knowledge disappeared without a trace. It transformed into myths, symbols, and rituals that have come down to us through the ages. These myths are like ciphers, encrypted messages from ancestors who wanted to pass on their knowledge to future generations, even if they themselves could not survive. Looking at ancient metals and materials that have been preserved also makes one ponder. They testify to a high level of metallurgical and material science knowledge that seems unfathomable for the times when these artifacts were created. These technologies and knowledge could have been the foundation for many legends about gods descending from the sky, mysterious machines, and magical objects. Perhaps they influenced the formation of culture, religion, and science in humanity. Antarctica is not just an icy continent. It is a lost part of human history, a key to understanding where we came from and what knowledge was passed down to us through millennia. The search for this knowledge is a search for ourselves, our place in the world and time. The idea that Antarctica was once home to an advanced civilization may sound fantastic, but the deeper we delve into research, the more facts support this hypothesis. Excavations, archaeological finds, geological studies, and analysis of ancient myths all provide clues about a world we do not yet fully understand. First of all, scientists pay attention to mysterious structures beneath the Antarctic ice. Satellite images and radar scanning reveal shapes resembling ruins of cities, roads, and reservoirs. These traces cannot be simply natural formations. They have clear geometric outlines characteristic of human constructions. Some researchers believe these objects may be remnants of ancient cities preserved by the ice sheet, like a museum of time. Climate change evidence is also important. It is known that millions of years ago, Antarctica was warm, with lush vegetation and rich animal life. The disappearance of this green Antarctica coincided with major geological catastrophes, massive shifts in the Earth's crust, volcanic eruptions, and changes in the planet's orbit. These events could have caused the gradual submersion of the civilization into ice and oblivion. But was this civilization unique? Perhaps there were other, lesser-known cultures that also vanished during global cataclysms. Legends of lost lands, vanished peoples, and mysterious knowledge recur in the myths of various peoples. These stories converge on the idea that worlds very different from our current reality once existed. Archaeology tries to find direct evidence, but ice and time make this extremely difficult. Nevertheless, artifacts have already been found that do not fit into the traditional chronology. Metal objects with unknown alloys, remains of ancient mechanisms, stone tools with unusual geometric forms, All these suggest the existence of technologically advanced cultures. Genetic studies of modern peoples also provide unexpected answers. Some groups possess genes indicating ancient contacts between continents, impossible according to traditional views of migrations. This suggests that humanity in the distant past may have been far more interconnected than we think. Mysteries remain in geology and ice physics anomalies as well. For example, findings of microscopic structures that could not have formed naturally, or areas of ice with unusual properties, which might indicate ancient human intervention or even extraterrestrial forces. These puzzles pose the question, what happened to this civilization? Was it destroyed by natural disasters, or did it retreat, hiding from cataclysms? And did its knowledge survive somewhere in the depths of glaciers, in the symbols of myths, or in our DNA? Perhaps the key to these questions lies in the myths themselves, in how different peoples describe disasters, floods, the long night without the sun, heavenly fire, and the return of gods. These narratives may be encrypted memories of tragic events that destroyed ancient worlds, and at the same time, promises of a new beginning. The search continues, and each new discovery expands the boundaries of our understanding. Although today we can see only drops from the ocean of the past, this drop gives us hope that someday we will learn the whole truth about the lost world beneath the ice, the world where human history began. Antarctica has long inspired people, even though its true nature remained a mystery for a long time. It often became a symbol of the unknown, extremity, challenge, and mystery in the culture, myths, and art of various peoples. Yet few have considered that this continental desert might hide stories that became the basis for the oldest legends and artistic images. Even in antiquity, Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land, was an object of imagination and dreams, a place that held something mysterious and unreachable. Travelers, cartographers, and philosophers invented entire worlds based on this image, depicting it as a land of balance and, at the same time, a threat or challenge to humanity. In the Middle Ages and Renaissance, interest in Antarctica revived with new geographical discoveries and maps that increasingly featured it. Artists created images of icy wastelands, misty shores, and majestic icebergs, which became symbols of mystery and the beauty of untouched nature. In the 20th century, Antarctica became a stage for scientific research and polar expeditions, giving rise to new cultural meanings. Famous writers, artists, and filmmakers used this continent as the setting for their works from science fiction to psychological dramas. Here unfolded stories of survival, struggle against the elements, discovery, and self-discovery. However, behind this outer layer of modern conceptions lies a deeper cultural code, one that stems from ancient myths and legends. The idea of a lost world beneath the ice, of civilizations that lived and vanished here, resonates in many cultural narratives. It awakens in people a sense of mystery and quest, reminding us of our shared history. In music, painting, literature, and cinema, Antarctica has become a metaphor for boundaries between life and death, knowledge and the unknown, the past and the future. It is depicted as a space of trials and transformations where every person can find their own reflection. It is especially interesting to observe how the indigenous peoples of the Southern Hemisphere perceive Antarctica in the context of their myths and worldview. For them, this continent is not only a geographic territory, but also a part of the spiritual space connected with the cosmos, ancestors, and nature. Through this connection, they preserve memories of ancient times when the world was different. In today's world, interest in Antarctica remains relevant. Climate change, ecological challenges, political disputes, and scientific discoveries intensify attention to this region. It becomes a symbol of humanity's responsibility toward nature and history. Thus, Antarctica in culture is not just a place on the map. It is a complex and multi-layered concept that combines history, myth, science, and art. It reminds us of our roots, that knowledge and memory live in the symbols and images we create, and that sometimes the most important discoveries are discoveries of ourselves. Antarctica is not just endless ice and cold. It is a complex system that holds the history of the planet, its climate, and even life. Today, science is making huge strides in understanding this mysterious land, but every new discovery raises even more questions. First of all, the ice of Antarctica is a kind of time capsule. Layers of ice accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years preserve the atmosphere of past epochs. By analyzing air bubbles in ice cores, scientists reconstruct the history of climate, track changes in carbon dioxide concentration, and study natural temperature fluctuations. This helps better understand today's climate change and predict the future. But besides climate, the ice hides other mysteries. Beneath the thick ice, lakes have been found that have remained isolated for millions of years. Lake Vostok, for example, is a real space on Earth where unique forms of life may exist, having evolved in complete darkness and under high pressure. Studying such extreme ecosystems helps imagine the possibilities of life on other planets and in space. The geology of Antarctica continues to surprise. Scientists have discovered traces of ancient volcanoes, mountain ranges, and even remnants of tectonic activity that may have played a role in climate change and the continent's shape. These discoveries give insight into the dynamics of the Earth's crust and possible causes of global catastrophes. The technologies used to study the continent are incredibly complex, from satellite monitoring to sub-ice probes and robotic devices. Yet many mysteries remain unknown, motivating scientists to seek new methods and theories. One of the most intriguing topics is the question of possible traces of ancient civilizations beneath the ice. Radar studies reveal anomalies that might be remnants of buildings or infrastructure. Although this has not yet been confirmed by official science, such facts cannot be ignored. It is important to note that Antarctica is a natural archive that preserves not only natural data, but also the history of life and possibly human civilizations. Understanding this requires a comprehensive approach combining geology, biology, archaeology, and even mythology. This continent is like a giant puzzle that we gradually uncover, and every layer of ice, every icy stone may hide the answer to questions about our past, our origins, and our future. Humanity only approached Antarctica closely in recent centuries. This continent remained the last great land to be explored. The history of the first expeditions is not only a story of courage and discovery, but also a series of mysteries and enigmatic events that remain unsolved to this day. The earliest mentions of the southern continent date back to antiquity, when geographers and travelers imagined Terra Australis as a vast landmass balancing the northern continents. But there were no real contacts with the land, only legends and theoretical maps. The first documented expeditions began in the 18th century, but most were exploratory or commercial in nature, without deep penetration into the continent. The first confirmed landing on the Antarctic shore occurred in 1821. From that time, the true era of polar exploration began. One of the most famous was James Ross's expedition, who discovered a series of glaciers and island chains. A significant discovery was the finding of the magnetic poles, which helped in studying the Earth's magnetosphere. These discoveries were fundamental for the development of navigation and geophysics. At the same time, many expeditions ended in tragedy. Lost ships, diseases, and harsh climatic conditions created an atmosphere of danger and legends. Famous stories about Ernest Shackleton and his crew, who survived after a catastrophe on the ice, became symbols of courage and willpower. However, among official records, mysterious facts appear: reports of unexplained lights, strange objects, and even traces that could not have been left by humans or animals. These stories hovered on the edge of science fiction and folklore, but their accumulation forces a reconsideration of the history of expeditions. In the 20th century, Antarctica became the object not only of scientific research, but also political intrigue and international treaties. The Antarctic Treaty of 1959 changed the continent's status, making it a zone of peace and science. However, questions about past mysteries remain open. Modern expeditions use the latest technologies, and their discoveries continue to surprise the world. Yet even now, reports occasionally emerge of unusual finds that challenge the traditional view of Antarctica's history. This chapter shows that human presence on the continent is not just about journeys and science, but also a search for answers to questions that have troubled humanity for centuries. And perhaps it is in Antarctica that the keys to understanding our history and future are hidden. Antarctica is not just cold and ice, but an incredible world hidden beneath the thick ice sheet. Subglacial lakes, concealed from human eyes for millions of years, have become one of the most fascinating objects of study. They are true time capsules preserving information about Earth's past, climate, and even life that has existed in complete isolation. One of the most famous is Lake Vostok, located beneath 4 kilometers of ice. This vast lake has had no contact with the outside world for about 15 million years. It is so isolated that its study offers the chance to observe ecosystems that have never interacted with other forms of life. Scientists believe that unique microorganisms may live in these lakes, adapted to extreme conditions: total darkness, high pressure, and low temperatures. This opens new horizons for studying the origins of life and its possible forms in space. Researching these lakes requires extremely delicate methods to avoid contamination and preserve the uniqueness of the environment. Modern technologies allow analyzing samples of ice and water without destroying this fragile ecosystem. Besides biological mysteries, subglacial lakes contain valuable information about the continent's geological history. Sediment deposits, chemical composition of water and gases provide insight into processes that occurred millions of years ago: plate tectonics, volcanic activity, and climate changes. These lakes have also become key to understanding global climate changes and the mechanisms of interaction between ice masses and the atmosphere. Today, Antarctic research is not only about uncovering past secrets, but also seeking answers that will help humanity face future climate challenges. Subglacial lakes are silent witnesses of time, holding secrets that could transform our understanding of Earth and life on it. Every drop of water from these depths is part of a great story yet to be revealed. Antarctica is not just the largest icy continent. It is a key to understanding the deep history of the Earth, its climate cycles, and the development of life. Over the past decades, discoveries here have changed not only scientific paradigms, but also our view of possible future scenarios. The past of Antarctica hides traces of a whole world long gone, but preserved in the ice, in myths, and in samples of deep time. From the oldest subglacial lakes to mysterious traces of civilizations, this continent opens doors to the darkest corners of history. Today, Antarctica is a place of international scientific cooperation, where countries unite for a common goal to understand how our planet works. Here, scientists study climate change, glaciology, and the biology of extreme environments, which can help humanity better prepare for global challenges. However, the continent also remains a field for geopolitical interests, tourism, and even disputes over resources. This threatens its unique ecosystem and raises questions about the ethical use of this region. The future of Antarctica depends on how humanity can combine science, nature conservation, and international collaboration. The answers hidden beneath the ice may help fight climate change, discover new forms of life, and reveal the mysteries of our planet. And although many mysteries remain unsolved, each new study brings us closer to understanding the grandeur and uniqueness of Antarctica, a continent that holds the keys to the Earth's past and future. Antarctica is a mirror in which humanity can see itself, its past, its present, and the path ahead. Its icy silence holds stories of ancient civilizations, great cataclysms, and unexplored worlds beneath the ice. It reminds us of the fragility of nature and of our responsibility for the future of the planet. Every new step in exploring this continent reveals new mysteries and pushes us to rethink what we once believed to be unchangeable. Antarctica is not just a place for science, it is a symbol of hope, showing that even in the harshest conditions, life finds a way. Our duty is to protect this unique corner of the Earth, to use knowledge to preserve our planet, and to remember that we are all part of a single great story, a story that continues and one we are still writing. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, it really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss future videos about the mysteries of our planet.